busy week, I'm getting back into a routine in the kitchen. I love to cook from scratch, but I also do it to save us money as well. Ideally, I always like to have extra bread items and a few quick meals stashed in the freezer for occasions like this where we are either too busy or are sick and don't feel like cooking. But that wasn't the case this time. I did manage to make a pot of chicken noodle soup with some bone broth to hold us for a few days. But we also grabbed several convenience items at the grocery store and got takeout a couple of nights to supplement when no one felt like cooking. And I'm not a purist about never buying things from the store or never going out to eat, but it didn't take much of that to really see the price difference in purchasing convenience things like crackers, bread, breakfast items versus making it myself. So after a little sticker shock, I'm committed to restocking my freezer with some sourdough sandwich bread, tortillas, and bagels for a cheap but healthy convenience food supply. Instead of doing one big batch cooking day, it's easier for me to knock out 1 or 2 small projects a day while my toddler is eating breakfast or lunch beside me in the high chair. And of course, to start off a new project, I first need some coffee. I also do have a video on how I get stuff done throughout the day while taking care of our daughter. So if you're interested in seeing mom routines or like that kind of inspirational video, I'll link that below as well. The first thing on the list is making sourdough bagels. My husband loves sourdough bagels to take to work, and they're a great grab-and-go breakfast for me as well. So that's first up. I will make sure to put all of my recipes in the description box below. I love making bagels because they are so versatile. They're good with just cream cheese, they're good as a breakfast sandwich with egg and cheese, or even a sandwich for lunch. They are also extremely easy to make. I can just double up my regular sandwich loaf recipe and then portion one part of it out into sandwich bread and the other half for bagels, or just make the entire recipe into bagels. Either way, it's just as simple as making sandwich bread. And then once you have your dough made, you're just going to let it ferment. So you can either do that on the counter and make it within the same day, or you can do what I do and pop it in the fridge until I have time to deal with it. So a lot of times I'll just mix up my bagel dough at night like I did here, and then pull it out in the morning to make my bagels. I often even do a longer fermentation and will go for 24 to 36 hours in the fridge. So this batch of dough actually has been sitting for about 24 hours at this point. I actually made this the morning before. And I'm going to portion out half into sandwich bread, and then I'm going to take the other half of the dough and put it in 8 individual pieces, shape them into bagels, and then bagels, you boil them in baking soda water and then bake them. It sounds like several steps, but it is seriously such a simple process that at this point I can make bagels without even thinking about what I need to do next. I've made all kinds of different flavors, everything bagel, blueberry, jalapeno cheddar, cinnamon sugar, raisin, all kinds of different bagels, but our favorites are honestly just the plain and everything bagels. So that's what I'm making today. You can see I'm shaping the dough into balls first. So I have half of my dough set to the side for the sandwich bread, and then the other half I'm portioning out into 8 equal pieces, and then I'll roll the dough towards me to kind of create tension in the dough, and that will smooth out each piece into a round ball. I take my thumbs and press a hole into the middle and then move my hands around the dough in a circle to create a bagel shape. And once I have all of my bagels shaped, I'll get some water boiling in a pot and then put a couple tablespoons of baking soda. And that baking soda water solution, it's very similar if you've ever made pretzels, but that's what gives bagels that chewy crust on the outside. So once my water's boiling, I'm going to boil each bagel for 30 seconds on each side, and then I'll pull them out and put them on my baking tray, and then I will cover them in my toppings. So to get my toppings to stick, I like to just brush on an egg wash. Some people dip their bagels in their seasonings. I like to just brush on an egg wash and sprinkle my everything bagel seasoning on top, or sesame seeds or salt or whatever I'm putting on top of my bagels. Even if I'm just making plain bagels, I'll go ahead and do the egg wash. This gives it an extra golden uniform color on top, and I just think it makes them look very nice. And then at this point, they're just ready to bake for about 28 minutes. The next thing on my list is making sourdough tortillas. This is another super simple recipe that can be made in many different ways. We use them for tacos, burritos, fajitas, sandwich wraps, and breakfast burritos for the freezer. I've shown the process of mixing together the dough in a previous video, but once you mix your 5 ingredients together in the mixer, you just cover it in plastic wrap and pop it in the fridge and let it ferment until you have time to bake them. This could be anywhere from 6 hours to 36 hours, just whenever you feel like getting to it. This is one of the things that I love the most about sourdough. People find it really intimidating because there is this fermentation time, but what they don't realize is how much flexibility it really gives you. So I could make this dough up on Monday, planning to use it that night, but if I don't get to it, it's going to be just fine in the fridge until Wednesday or maybe even Thursday. There's no set time when you're dealing with a cold fermentation in the fridge. Eventually, yes, your dough could over ferment, but it's going to take several days. So I have so much more flexibility using sourdough than I do something like yeast bread, where I might be able to kind of slow down the rise in the fridge, but I'm still going to have to get to it within a day or so. And sourdough can go much longer. So once my tortillas have fermented, it's just time to roll them out and cook them on the stovetop. So I'm going to cut up my tortilla dough into equal pieces and then roll them with a rolling pin as thin as I can get them. If you have a tortilla press, I think that would probably be a lot simpler. I don't have one, so I just use my rolling pin. And then once I have my tortillas made up, I just get my griddle on my stove on medium heat, get it nice and hot. You can also use a cast iron skillet. Once it's nice and hot, you're going to put in your tortillas and cook them for 30 seconds to a minute on each side. There's no exact time. You'll know that they're done when they kind of puff up and have some golden spots on each side. And then you just move them over to your plate. And you do want to take something like butter and rub it over the tortilla as soon as you pull it off. This just helps to keep it flexible and soft. So I make sure to do that as soon as I pull each tortilla off. You do not cook the tortillas in any kind of oil. So you're just cooking this on a dry, hot cast iron skillet or griddle. And for about a minute each, and then you're good to go. Once my tortillas cool, I can stash these in the freezer as well. I'll just separate them with some parchment paper and put those in the freezer. The last thing that I'm making are sourdough crackers. Sourdough crackers are another very easy discard recipe. You don't have to have any kind of freshly fed starter. It can be discard straight from the fridge. If you want to ferment this recipe, you would want to mix this up ahead of time and let it sit. I typically don't ferment my crackers. I just use sourdough discard and mix together. I usually add cheese and some seasonings and then pour that directly on my hot skillet or hot pizza stone and bake right away. So these are not long fermented, but they are absolutely delicious and way cheaper than buying store-bought crackers. This time I made some cheese crackers, so I put some cheddar cheese and some salt and a little garlic powder to make a savory, almost like a wheat thin, sourdough cracker. Until next time, you can catch us on the blog gardenofmirth.com, where you will find all of these recipes and many more, Instagram, and Pinterest. If you enjoy gardening, cooking from scratch, and keeping a cozy home, hit that subscribe button and check out our other videos here on YouTube. Until next time, bye friends.